Hi, welcome back to Z-fari, the video novel. Today we're going to read the second half of chapter 11. So if you're ready, we'll begin. Here we go. Take your gun and your bloody zombie dick down to the Escalade, Junior, Rick said. I've got to pay Ike, and there's a question I'd like to ask him. See you later, Ike, Junior called as he went down the stairs, laughing all the way. Here's the 5K, Ike, like I promised. Since we got our zombie, I've got another proposition for you. A safari into Z-land. My brother and me, a couple of my guys, tents, a good chef to cook dinner. I'd pay you $40,000 to be my guide. If you bring your pal, you'd have to split it. You find the spot, and my people would fly us in on one of my dad's helicopters. It would just be over the weekend. You're a smart guy. You could put it together. Think about it. I'll be in touch. And then Rick walked down the stairs, got into the Escalade, and drove away. You're not going to believe what that asshole just asked me, BB, Ike said. Corporal DeBigny continued to take her recruits through the most basic of training. This would be the recruits' second day with the flamethrowers. On the first day, she had shown them how to turn them on and shoot a stream and hit a stationary target. She had had clothing store mannequins in place for them to aim at. Today would be different. If these people were ever to actually take out, she hated that term, it sounded like they were going on a date, one of the undead, they would have to be taught to first fire on something that seemed to be a zombie. She knew that in traditional combat, a soldier had four options: fight, flight, posture, or submit. With zombies, there was only one: fight. If her troopers ran away or just pretended to fight, she would kill them herself. She would leave wherever she was stationed, hunt that coward down, and plant petunias in his or her skull, a sensitive, nurturing twist on an old tradition. Back in the 1940s, S.L.A. Marshall conducted studies and discovered that people have a natural aversion to killing other people. Armies changed their training methods to incorporate this knowledge and create soldiers who didn't mind killing the enemy. They began using man-shaped targets in marksmanship practice, practicing fighting, and putting the responsibility for killing on the soldier's squad or the commanding officer. When the zombies appeared, the military and Border Patrol added one more training modification. Today, the 10 would get to experience that fifth modification. When Corporal DeBigny brought her recruits to the range, there were 2 flamethrowers ready and 2 marionettes dangling from steel scaffolds on wires. The wires were attached to their heads, torsos, arms, and legs on one end, and to large kite-like paddles up in the air. As the breeze blew against the paddles moved and moved the marionettes' bodies in turn. The marionettes wore tattered clothing, and one wore a baseball cap, at least for a while. Cedric Jones, the tough recruit, raised his hand. "Ma'am," he said. "Yes, Trooper," the corporal said. "Those puppets look pretty realistic, ma'am," he said with a nervous edge to his voice. "They had better, Trooper," she said. "If you're going to be able to kill the undead on the platforms, you had better be able to kill the dead in training." "Kill the dead?" Trooper Jones asked, a note of disbelief in his voice. "Sure," she explained. "The marionettes are dead. Motorcyclists who bought the farm riding without helmets, cadavers from medical schools, bodies donated to the Kansas State Anatomy Board for medical research, and bodies found on the streets that used to be buried in Potter's Field. We use a limited number for training. Nobody knows about them, and nobody cares. So from now on, in your weapons training, you will use marionettes. You will learn to kill the dead now so that you can kill the undead later." "That seems pretty goofy, ma'am," Recruit Lawrence chimed in. "Oh, it's all based on hopology, the science of human combative behavior and performance. Sir Richard Francis Burton coined the term in the 1800s. Extensive scientific research has proven that humans will only tap into their violent potential once the need has arisen. Human genetics have developed an on-off switch in the brain. Once the switch that turns on that violent potential is activated, we're good to go. But in order to flip that switch, we have to inculcate you into the Tao of fighting, stimulating your journey to the switch by the enjoyment of competition, the thrill, and finally the bloodlust and killing ecstasy. Any more questions? Okay then. John and John, light 'em up." Sergeant Earhart and Trooper Reed finished a quarter of the platforms the first day. By the end of the second day, they were worn out, but at least they had gotten back to the platforms in the Witch. They would take a break tomorrow and work out of the office. Reed could write up his notes, and he and Sergeant Earhart could go over the inspections they had completed so far. And there was good food in Wichita. Fast food on Highway 35 sucked. One of the burgers Emily had eaten might as well have been carved out of the thigh of a zombie. Surely it wasn't any kind of beef that she'd ever experienced. Meanwhile, down in the lab, Willie continued to heal, and Jerry the zombie continued to drip a mixture of urine and liquid fecal matter onto the floor. The patrol custodian was seriously considering quitting his job. Dr. MacDougall continued reviewing the literature and making modifications to his plan for the plexiglass cell for Phase 4. He called Alyssa, was it Alice? Allison? Whatever. She arrived promptly with a notepad. Just a couple of additions to the cell that I've thought of, he told her. She nodded and prepared to jot down his inspirations. We will need a net in the ceiling that we can drop on the zombie to restrain him when we need to. True troopers should have, what do they call those electric sticks they used to make cows go to the slaughterhouse? Cattle prods, Allison asked. Yes, that's the term. But they should be more heavy duty. Zombies aren't as tractable as cattle. I'll do some research, Allison said. Good. And besides controlling and moving the zombie, we will need to record many different kinds of data. You did instruct the builders to set state-of-the-art sensors in the floor to measure the weight of the zombie and the subject. Yes, I did, Allison said. Well, we're going to need more instruments. I want to be able to record sound far beyond the audible human frequency range. I would like to be able to record and analyze frequencies from 16 hertz to 123,000 hertz, as low as an elephant can hear and as high as a whale can hear. Check, she said. And we will need to record and analyze data from the electromagnetic spectrum. Ideally, we would like to be able to record and analyze X-ray radiation, ultraviolet radiation, visible radiation, infrared radiation, and microwave radiation. In the visible part of the spectrum, I would like to have the opportunity to see what happens in 3 dimensions, so we will need 4 stereoscopic cameras, one for each wall of the plexiglass cell. We'll also need 4 8K UHD cameras. Can we get a rush order from one of those high-end computer makers like Falcon Northwest? I'll see what I can do, Allison said. Well, get to work on those, MacDougall said, and went back to his reading, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. Oh, wait a minute, MacDougall called as Allison was just through the door. She turned and came back to his desk. And he added, we will need machine-based olfactory technologies, a conducting polymer sensor, a surface acoustic wave sensor, and fast GC analyzer, a colorimetric odor detector, and the appropriate advanced signal processing and pattern recognition algorithms. Yes, sir, Allison said, and walked through the doorway again. Dr. MacDougall went back to his reading.